Good morning. Today is the final day of February of 2010. 59 days ago, some of us made some promises to ourselves. How many of us kept those promises? It's not hard to remember. It wasn't very long ago that we were listening to the explosions, the illegal explosions, I might add, outside of our houses, rattling the windows. So that wasn't too long ago, but it seems like probably a year ago to some of us. Let's move a little further into the mid-January time frame. The legislature came into session in Hawaii, and immediately they addressed House Bill 444, which was a big controversial bill last year. That particular bill passed the Senate with a veto-proof majority, and that meant if it went to the governor, it was bulletproof. It would become law. The bill would allow same-sex couples to attain same status as a married couple between one man and one woman in the eyes of the state. It was after that time that I got an email. It was kind of interesting. The email said, "This is what happens when Christians are complacent." Didn't say it with that kind of tone, but that's how I took it. And I took it very personal because I said to myself, how dare somebody say I was complacent? I'm a card-carrying Christian. I have Christian stickers on the back of my pickup truck. I come to church every Sunday. I lead a men's group. I teach Sunday school. I'm not complacent. But in reality, I had to think about it. I had done nothing to voice my opinion or the Christian position on that bill. I didn't go down there and wear red or white shirts. I didn't write my representative or senator. I didn't stand out on the road with a sign. I did nothing to stop that or voice the Lord's position on that. So I began to ask myself, how did we get to this position in society and this state to discuss this type of issue when something that has been defined by God and society for over 1,000 years? Now, this message isn't singling out one group or a sin in general. We are supposed to love the sinner and hate the sin. But this message is about Christians making a difference. After some research, there's a few dates that we all need to keep in mind. In 1963, prayer was removed from public schools. In 1920, the ACLU was formed. Some people like to call that the American Communist Lawyers Union. In 1636, now this is before the birth of our nation, 1636, Harvard was started as a seminary. In 1701, again before the birth of our nation, Yale was started in response to, this is 65 years later, Harvard becoming too liberal. Okay? So think about it. Those are just some points that I was able to gather surfing the internet. Now, I don't think we have any 90-year-old people in here this morning, so none of us were around when the ACLU was created. And I can't relate to the Harvard and Yale creation, which was over 300 years ago. But I believe all three of those have played a part in the truth of the Bible being marginalized. So let's talk about the removal of prayer from our schools, or simply the removal of God from our public education in 1963. Let's put it in perspective. That was 47 years ago. And if you're younger than 53, you never prayed in public school. That means that there is no recollection of God's presence in the public forum. It's a whole generation of citizens of the United States that never experienced God's presence in their education system. Let me give you some history about prayer in the schools. The court case started out in Baltimore, Maryland. It was thrown out. They took it to the Court of Appeals. It was thrown out. It went through several other legal processes, and then it went to the Supreme Court. It was voted against in the Supreme Court by a vote of 8-1. Not one Christian organization filed a brief in support of prayer in schools. Not one Christian organization. So that brings me to the point. In many ways, the expulsion of God from public acceptance has created these debates about the definition of family and marriage. So we shouldn't be surprised to see bills like House Bill 444 seriously being considered. But we as Christians sometimes retreat to our churches and our family groups and hope and pray that the rapture comes tomorrow because we don't want to deal with it. But if you look at your program, this is what we're going to talk about this morning. Christians can make a difference. That's the title of this message. And Jesus tells us how we can make a difference. And the Bible points out the power that we have to do that. As we read through the life of Jesus, we see many times where he's confronted with false teachers and lies. And he deals with them lovingly and directly. He has given us a command, as we read in the meditation verses this morning in Matthew 6. Therefore I tell you, Jesus speaking, do not worry about your life. Do not worry. Worry has been described as sitting in a rocking chair or being on a treadmill. You're doing a lot of work getting nowhere. But if you're woken at 3 a.m. in the morning and you're told that a tsunami is coming, you get worried? That's what happened to me yesterday. At 4:30 in the morning, I go down the hill and Safeway parking lot is packed. Every gas station you pass is full, like there's an oil embargo on. And this is in the middle of the night. People are worried. You come back and you glue yourself to the television and watch everything that the newscasters say. And over a period of time, you can get very anxious listening to the same thing over and over again. Finally, I just turned it off and said, I'll wait till 11 o'clock and see what happens. But it is not easy not to worry. It's not easy not to worry when your son tells you he wants to join the Marines, or your job is up in the air, or you have no control over the things that are going on in your life. It's not easy, but Jesus tells us not to do it. But when we talk about worrying, what really is worrying? Is this something that you can put a finger on? Can you give it a definition? Well, there was one man in this church who gave it a definition some time ago when we were in the old building. Mike Perry gave us a definition of worry. He called it fear. False expectations appearing real. F-E-A-R. False expectations appearing real. That's what it is. It's fear. It's a fear that paralyzes us as Christians. We're stuck in neutral. We're afraid to do anything because we're afraid. We're fearful of the outcome. But Jesus tells us how to be overcomers, as we read in these meditation verses this morning in Matthew chapter 6.